Hello and welcome to this video, Confident SDLT Compliance, an introduction to 4Stamp. My name is John Margett and I'm delighted to be your host today on behalf of OneSearch. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching as a conveyancer, a property professional, or simply someone keen to stay ahead of the latest compliance changes, you're in the right place. Today, we'll be exploring how 4Stamp can help you tackle one of the most persistent headaches in conveyancing, stamp duty land tax. We'll look at the latest market challenges, including breaking news from HMRC, and show you how 4Stamp can help you reduce risk, save time, and stay compliant, no matter how complex the SDLT landscape becomes. Joining me today is Richard Friend, Managing Director at Mirador Advisory.
Hi, John.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to, first of all, speak a little bit about OneSearch, and then I'm going to hand over to Richard, who'll tell you all about what 4Stamp can offer you. So OneSearch is the largest local search data company in the UK, providing property information and conveyancing solutions to solicitors and other customers. We've been operating within the property industry for over 30 years, and during that time have become market leaders through unrivaled expertise and principles. We actually began collecting property search data way back in 1992. Over the last 33 years, we've developed incredibly close relationships with other key data curators and search teams. We're constantly updating our in-house data sets, which therefore ensures rapid delivery of the most up-to-date property and land search information. And now I'm going to hand over to Richard, and he will tell you all about the marvellous offering that 4Stamp has.
Thanks, John. So, just quickly to start off with, I'll run through a bit of background about 4Stamp, its origin, and then we'll get into some specifics as to why it's important, why it plays such an increasing focus in the conveyancing process. So, to start off with, what is 4Stamp? Well, effectively, it's a tool that really focuses on sort of customer engagement and, more importantly, compliance. We provide your clients with the knowledge, expertise, and support to navigate property tax with confidence. So, just to give you a little bit more background into our history. Why was 4Stamp created? Well, when you look across the conveyancing landscape, solicitors already outsource a wide range of specialist compliance tasks, whether it's AML tasks, ID verification, or source of funds assessments. The profession has embraced external support to manage regulatory risk efficiently and cost effectively. But SDLT has always been the exception, despite being one of the most financially significant parts of a transaction and one of the most common areas for a HM&C inquiry. There has been no accessible specialist service to support solicitors in getting SDLT right. There's no equivalent to your AML provider, no structured way to verify complex tax positions, no safety net for borderline or unusual cases. Instead, the market has historically split into two. Firstly, sort of the large consultancy firms that offer SDLT advice at a cost only corporates or high net worth clients could justify. And then everyone else, we're left to make the best call they can with limited time, limited guidance, and rising compliance pressures. So 4Stamp was created to close that gap. We've combined smart technology with direct access to qualified SDLT specialists who can assess, analyse, and advise with confidence. And we're doing it at a price that delivers exceptional value to everyday residential and commercial clients. So sort of to sum it up, our mission is quite simple: to give every conveyancer the same level of tax protection and technical support that they already rely on in other parts of the compliance process. So we deliver a fast, accurate, insured service that's effectively designed specifically for the realities of modern conveyancing. So really, in terms of the challenges, I want to sort of spin it around a bit, because There's a lot of talk, there's a lot about the number of different reliefs, exceptions, the number of tax rates, the changes that go through. There's quite a number of different solutions which provide very binary decisions that are out there. But HMRC actually issued guidelines for what qualifies or doesn't for SDLT. And a question I'm often asked as to, well, why should we sort of use a service such as 4Stamp rather than HMRC? His own solution is that, why would a client need to pay for something that's obvious, simple, and potentially doesn't even need a calculation? And I suppose like my response to that is that it's the unseen complexity that's likely to actually cause the errors. So if you recognize something is complex, you're likely to be wary. It's when you are confident based on a low level of knowledge that mistakes are more likely to be made. So if I were to take probably the simplest example there is, first time buyer relief. So with first time buyer relief, if I've never owned a property and it's under 300,000, so there's no need to do a calculation, there's no tax to pay. However, there are 8 scenarios where a first-time buyer is not actually eligible for first-time buyers relief. So just to give you some of those, people who hold certain interest in properties via trusts, people who are purchasing a property to be used for any purpose other than their main residence, people who have interest in foreign properties. So do you ask those questions? Are you a first-time buyer is a question that's asked. People say yes or no, binary. However, there are a number of other sort of circumstance or scenarios that actually mean that simple, easy for calculations actually has the potential to be an error. And I'm just using that as an example of how actually it's the unseen complexity that actually is the piece that is more likely to cause mistakes and for people to have issues. So moving on from that, I mean, HMRC have confirmed this week that firms who submit SDLT returns will need to register as tax advisors in accordance with the 25-26 Finance Bill. So even more scrutiny will come on this. Now, at the moment, I think firms have to register, and it's come out this week that it comes into force from May 2026, and detailed guidance will be issued in January. But the direction of travel is very clear. Having accurate, auditable, compliant processes for stamp duty are becoming ever more important to solicitor firms. So why is it such a pain point and a headache for solicitor firms? Well, I've already just touched upon sort of the complex rules, the amount of reliefs. I think there's over sort of 50 reliefs exemptions, numerous different tax rates. The rules and thresholds can change, and so staying abreast and up to date with all the information when effectively it's an add-on element of a conveyancing transaction immediately introduces risk to a conveyancing business. And with that comes the sort of assumed competence, those scenarios where the unknown complexity actually have the highest risk to a firm. So, who actually checks the calculation within a firm? It's a CQS best practice. Checking the printout of a HMR calculator which your colleague has submitted is not validating that the calculation is correct. It's not validating that all the right questions are asked to identify the correct elements. Essentially, if you do that in your firm and if that's your practice, you're checking your own homework, which means you're unlikely to uncover the mistakes. And with that, there actually is a high risk of error. Misclassification and missed reliefs are effectively quite common and suspect are underreported in terms of the numbers, purely because if you don't ask the right questions, you don't know that you've got the wrong answer. And HMRC's calculator itself doesn't cover all the scenarios, which leaves firms exposed. And with those missed reliefs and overpayments, your clients expect you to spot every one. But essentially, the system currently is stacked against you because of simplicity and very few questions. I think with HMRC's calculator, you can get an answer in 6 questions, and they're all binary. So in terms of understanding the complexity, interpreting the guidelines, none of that is catered for with online calculators. And that also then brings the audit and compliance burden. So, retrospective claims and audits are on the rise. HMRC themselves clamped down in the last 12, 18 months on a huge explosion in retrospective claims for the uninhabitable relief, as an example. And firms must now maintain detailed records to potentially defend themselves against claims and meet the sort of the compliance and regulatory standards. And whether you have a modern online auditable process, or whether actually someone just jumps off to a HMRC calculator and puts some information in, again, there's a big impact on potential risk and workload with that. So how does 4Stamp work? Well, essentially, it's a dynamic question set that identifies the transactions that may not be simple. If it is a straightforward transaction, then it will calculate a figure. And once you have that figure, we get the purchasers to, via an e-signature, confirm that the details that have been entered into that calculation are accurate. When they do that, that value and any submission instructions for the SDLT 1 return are digitally sent to both the solicitor and the purchaser. However, if the transaction is identified as needing further information, such as one of the questions flags that there might be further investigation required, then what we do is we, or our team of tax specialists, will contact the solicitor firm, and they will understand and interrogate the information, effectively analyse the transaction. That might involve only speaking with the solicitor, or it might involve speaking directly with the client and looking at other documents that are associated with the transaction, such as trust documents. If actually there's further advice required, then that's quoted directly with the client on a per transaction basis. But in all 3 scenarios, whether we simply assess, whether we analyse, or we provide advice, the liability for that calculation and the validation of the fee that is due to HMRC is transferred from the solicitor's firm to ourselves. We effectively have validated and verified the information, and we have professional indemnity insurance, which underwrites all the calculations and instructions that we provide. So effectively, why should you choose 4Stamp? Well, essentially, it's the full confidence in the accuracy of the tax liability that's been calculated. It's the transfer of that professional liability. We assume full professional responsibility for the SDLT position that has been adopted. This means your firm is protected, the client is protected, and any future HMRC inquiry is covered under our £1 million per claim professional indemnity insurance, provided that that position is based on the advice that we provided. And so essentially, we not only reduce the risk, we strengthen compliance, and we protect your firm. At a more granular level, we ask the questions that prompt the conversation to uncover the nuances, the hidden complexities. Binary online calculators, such as the one HMRC itself provides, cannot do this with their limited number of yes/no questions. Any transaction that is flagged as not being vanilla, i.e. might have a nuance, is eyeballed and checked by a qualified expert. The audit trail for your firm of the questions and answers, plus any additional documentation that's been reviewed, and any specific instructions where applicable for SDLT 1 returns, are all available from within the platform. You also have immediate access to a specialist where there is uncertainty, such as whether a main residence will be sold before the new purchase completes. We actually provide alternate values and instructions, so that in that specific example, the firm knows exactly the value and what to do depending on how the transaction completes. There's no additional charge There's no second charge when something's altered. Effectively, we provide the either or scenario in those circumstances where the transaction, the property transaction, is dependent on another thing happening. And if 4Stamp therefore is used on all your property transactions, be it residential or commercial, you remove the risk of tax non-compliance entirely from your business. And we are aware that one leading insurance firm has added in SDLT specific questions in their renewal questionnaire for solicitor PI insurance for 2026. And so I suppose to summarise, to repeat our mission, which is simple, we aim to give every conveyancer the same level of tax protection and technical support that they already rely on in other parts of the compliance process.
I'm now going to show you how to order 4Stamp SDLT on the OneSearch portal. Once you've logged into the portal, go to the compliance section and click on Order Compliance Products. Put in your reference details and click Save References. And you'll see 4Stamp SDLT as the first product under Compliance. Simply click on Add to Order and that will appear in your basket here. You'll then need to input the property address. Easiest way to do it is to simply put in the postcode, and that should bring up a list of matching addresses. Choose the correct address, and if you need to manually amend it, you can do so here. It'll ask if it's a residential or commercial property, so make sure it's residential and click on Confirm Address. It'll then ask you for the details of the client, and you can complete the details of up to 4 clients. At least one needs to be provided. So if we go into this one here, it's just the basic information of the first name, last name, email address, and phone number. Repeat the process for up to 4 clients, and once you've got everybody that you need, click on Save Details. All you need to do then is click on Place Order and check the details in the summary page before submitting the order. It gives you the address details, the reference details, and what you're ordering, which is the 4Stamp SDLT, and the estimated turnaround time, which is approximately 1 day. Once you've checked that all that information is correct, click on Place Order. We'll ask you if you do want to place the order, just click on OK, and that order comes through, and you will then see the order confirmation. There's your order number. All you then need to do is to click into this tab here, which says Go to 4Stamp SDLT, and then you'll be redirected to the 4Stamp SDLT page to complete the process. Thank you for joining us today. For more information, please contact me or any of my colleagues on the number and email address below. If you would like to find more about OneSearch, you can register with us on the website below, or please give us a call on this number, and you can also follow us on social media at onesearch.direct. Thank you ever so much to Richard for joining us today and providing a very valuable insight into 4Stamp.
Thanks, John.